On the Oregon Trail in September of 1853, a woman named Amelia Stewart Knight crawled into the back of a covered wagon and gave birth to her 8th child. The wagon train did not stop. No doctor came. No bed was made. The next morning, she was walking beside the oxen with the rest of them. Her diary does not name the baby for days. Hollywood gives you one scream, one cry, one smile. The truth took weeks, and it killed more pioneer women than cholera, snakebite, or the trail itself ever did. Of the 14 truths we are about to walk through, one was the real mass killer. It took more mothers than all the others on this list combined, and it may not be the one you expect. Now, before we go any further, tap that subscribe button. Stay until the very end. The last one will shock you. We are not going to the movies for this. We are going to the diaries. The county death books, the medical journals written by the men and the midwives who were actually in the room. The average frontier woman married by 18 and bore her first child within a year. She would spend the next 20 years of her life either pregnant or nursing. Her body was the machine that built the West, and nobody maintained it. When we say a woman died, we will name her if the record names her. When the record is silent, we will say that too. So let us begin at the bottom with the truth most people never think about and work our way up to the one that should have changed everything. Number 14. No privacy. A pioneer birth happened in a one-room sod house or under a canvas wagon top. The whole family was right there. Husband, older children, sometimes strangers sharing the same stretch of trail. The only partition was a quilt hung on a rope. On the overland trail, women labored with the sound of oxen and other families talking just feet away. There was no sterile room. There was no closed door. Today, a woman delivers in a private suite with a locked entrance and a call button on the rail. Back then, she got a blanket on a rope and hoped the wagon behind hers was not too close. Number 13. The husband is midwife. On an isolated homestead 50 miles from the nearest neighbor, there was no one else. The husband delivered the baby. He had no training. He had no tools. If something went wrong, there was no second pair of hands. Some of these men wrote about it in their journals, and the terror comes through plain. The same hands that split fence rails that morning caught the baby that night. And if the cord was wrapped or the baby did not breathe, he was on his own with God and nothing else. Number 12. Homemade remedies and ergot. Ergot of rye was the most common drug used to speed a stalled labor. It worked by forcing the uterus to contract violently. Too much and the uterus ruptured. Too much and the blood supply to the limbs shut down. Gangrene followed. In 1824, Dr. William Deweese published a warning that ergot had destroyed more lives than it had saved. Doctors kept prescribing it for another 50 years. On the frontier, women dosed themselves from folk recipes with no way to measure the strength. The cure was often worse than the weight. Number 11. No pain relief by medical decree. Ether was demonstrated in 1846. Chloroform followed a year later. Queen Victoria herself used chloroform during a delivery in 1853. But in America, the most powerful obstetrician in the country refused to allow it. Dr. Charles Meigs of Philadelphia told his students in 1848 that pain in childbirth was a desirable and conservative manifestation of the life force. He said to remove it was to defy God. The frontier woman did not lack the drug because it had not been invented. She lacked it because a man in a lecture hall decided she was meant to suffer. We are not even halfway through this list. The worst is still coming. Number 10. back to work within hours. Amelia Stewart Knight again. Her diary entry is plain. She delivered. The next day she recorded the miles walked. No rest, no recovery. On a homestead, the animals needed feeding by dawn. The children still needed minding. The crop was not going to wait. Women who had given birth that same morning were hauling water before the sun went down. Today, the average hospital stay after delivery is 2 days. On the frontier, there was no stay at all. Number 9. Repeated pregnancies, one body. The average frontier woman bore between 7 and 10 children. Some bore more. Pregnancies came back to back, often while she was still nursing the last one. Calcium leached from her bones. Her spine compressed. Her organs shifted and never returned. A woman of 35 on the frontier could carry the skeleton of someone twice her age. She did not wear out from years. She wore out from use. Number 8. The cord and neonatal tetanus. The umbilical cord was cut with whatever was at hand, a kitchen knife, sewing scissors, sometimes a piece of broken glass. If the blade was dirty, the wound let in Clostridium tetani. They called the result the 9-day fits, because the convulsions began around the 9th day of life. In some frontier counties, neonatal tetanus was the single leading cause of newborn death. The baby survived the birth and died from the blade that cut the cord. Number 7. Breech birth and obstructed labor. A baby presenting feet first, or sideways, or a labor that stalled for days with no progress. Without surgery, these were death sentences for the child and often for the mother. Forceps existed, but were almost never available on a remote homestead. In untrained hands, they caused as much damage as the obstruction itself. In a city, a doctor might be summoned within the hour. On the plains, the nearest doctor was a 3-day ride away. The baby was not going to wait 3 days. Number 6. Cesarean section was a death sentence. Before antiseptic surgery, opening the abdomen meant infection, and infection meant death. The maternal mortality rate for a cesarean before antiseptics ran above 90% by most estimates. The most famous exception is Dr. Jesse Bennett, who reportedly performed a cesarean on his own wife Elizabeth on a crude wooden table in the Virginia backcountry in 1794. She survived, but the account was not published until 1830 by a colleague, not by Bennett himself. No contemporary document confirms it. The frontier produced exactly one famous cesarean survival story. It may not even be true. That tells you everything about the odd. Number 5. Stillbirths on the trail. Thousands of pioneer women carried pregnancies across the Overland Trail and delivered babies who never drew breath. Historians estimate between 20,000 and 30,000 graves line the Oregon, California, and Mormon trails. A significant share of them belong to infants born dead or dying. Many of those graves were left unmarked or deliberately disguised to prevent animals from digging. In some accounts, the mother dug the hole herself, and the wagon train moved on in the morning. Number 4. If the mother died, the baby usually followed. There was no formula, there was no refrigeration, there was no wet nurse within 100 miles. When a mother died in childbirth or was too ill to nurse, the family tried feeding the newborn cow milk or sugar water through a rag. Studies from the period show the mortality rate for hand-fed infants ran above 50% in the first year. The mother and the child were one system. When that system broke, both halves usually failed. Remember the question I asked at the beginning. We are almost there. Number 3. Prolapse and permanent injury. Uterine prolapse, fistulas, and pelvic floor damage were common among women who delivered repeatedly with no medical care and went straight back to hauling water and splitting wood. These injuries lasted a lifetime. They were painful and humiliating, and almost no one treated them. In the 1840s, Dr. J. Marion Sims developed a surgical repair for one of these conditions. But his patients were enslaved women in Alabama, and the procedure did not reach frontier women for decades. She carried the injury from her first birth to the grave. No one called it an injury. They called it womanhood. Number 2. Burying their own children. Infant and child mortalities on the frontier ran between 25 and 40% in the hardest years and places. A woman who bore 8 children might bury 3 or 4 before they reached the age of 5. Dysentery, measles, scarlet fever, diphtheria, a fall from a wagon, a winter that would not end. The grief was cumulative and unending. The culture expected her to bear it quietly and conceive again. The headstones, where there are headstones at all, are the size of a shoe. Number 1. Childbed fever. This is the answer: puerperal fever. Infection of the uterus after delivery, caused by bacteria carried into the body during or just after birth. The birth goes well. The baby lives. The mother seems fine. Then 2 or 3 days later, the fever begins. The abdomen swells and hardens. The pain becomes unbearable. Within a week, she is dead. And in case after documented case, the bacteria were introduced on the unwashed hands of the very person who delivered the baby. In 1847, a Hungarian physician named Ignaz Semmelweis proved it. At the Vienna General Hospital, the maternity ward staffed by doctors had a death rate near 1 in 6. The ward staffed by midwives had a death rate far below that. The difference was simple. The doctors came straight from the autopsy room to the delivery room without washing their hands. Semmelweis ordered his staff to wash in chlorinated lime solution. The death rate fell to below 1 in 50 almost overnight. He published the data. The medical establishment rejected him. He was mocked. He was dismissed from his post. He was committed to an asylum in 1865, where he died within 2 weeks. He was 47 years old. And here is the cruelest part of the whole story. On the frontier, births attended by experienced midwives, women who worked only with laboring mothers and never touched a corpse, had significantly lower death rates than births attended by physicians. The replacement of midwives by doctors was sold as progress. The data said the opposite. The hand that was supposed to save her was the hand that killed her. 3 forces built the lie. First, the Victorian medical establishment, which suppressed midwifery and marketed physician-attended birth as modern and safe when the numbers proved it was more dangerous. Second, the culture of silence. Women's birth injuries, women's grief, women's deaths were treated as private matters not fit for the public record. The evidence was kept thin enough for later generations to ignore. Third, Hollywood. Every Western birth scene runs the same way. A woman screams, a baby cries, someone smiles. 90 seconds of screen time. The fever that crept in 3 days later never appears on camera. The baby she buried the year before is never mentioned. The injury she carried for 40 years does not exist in that world. The movies did not lie by showing birth wrong. They lied by pretending that scene was the whole story. So here is my answer. The deadliest truth on this list is number 1. And it is number 1 not because it was the most dramatic, but because it was the most preventable: a basin of chlorinated water. That was the distance between a mother who lived and a mother who died in agony. And the men in charge refused to cross it for decades. Today, a woman walks into a delivery room, and every hand that touches her has been scrubbed to the elbow. She does not know the name Ignaz Semmelweis. She does not know what it cost to make that basin of clean water standard. And somewhere out past a fence line on a hillside that used to be a homestead, there is a woman in the ground who would have lived if someone had simply washed his hands. No one alive can tell you her name. Which one hit you the hardest? Tell me below. And if you want the truth behind another piece of the frontier that Hollywood erased, the next one is already waiting for you.